For an entire decade, he and Art Garfunkel created something that felt nothing short of magical. Two voices that, on paper, shouldn't have blended together, but somehow became perfect. Simon was the writer, the poet behind the words. Garfunkel was the voice, the soaring harmonies that turned those words into something unforgettable. Together, they became the soundtrack of an entire generation's dreams, heartbreaks, and hopes. Your partner? That's right. We started doing concerts. There were louder duos, flashier acts, but no one captured silence the way they did. Sail On, Silver. It was the space between the notes, the pause before the chorus, the way their voices would merge into one and then separate again, that made folk music feel like poetry, and poetry feel like prayer. Even when they weren't speaking to each other, the music never lied. Simon was always the architect, the songwriter, building the melodies. But he knew those songs needed Garfunkel's voice to truly soar, to transform simple lines into something that could break your heart or mend it. And even decades after their last album together, Simon still remembers the songs that got it absolutely right. The ones that caught lightning in a bottle and never let it go. These are Paul Simon's 5 favorite songs from the Simon and Garfunkel catalog. 5. The box are some songs are stories. This one was a battle cry disguised as a lullaby. The Boxer was born during Paul Simon's hardest stretch as a songwriter. The Boxer, I like. It's a quality song. The late 60s were reshaping everything, and Simon was struggling to find his footing. So he wrote about fighting even when you're already beaten, about standing back up when staying down would be so much easier. The song didn't come quickly. It took months. Simon would write a verse, scrap it, and start over. He wanted to capture something precise about resilience, about the young fighter who keeps swinging even when he knows he can't win. The boxer in the song wasn't really a fighter. He was everyone who has ever refused to quit when giving up made the most sense. Recording it was unlike anything they'd done before. Instead of soft, gentle folk tones, Simon wanted something dramatic. The session musicians pounded heavy drums that rolled like thunder, bass that shook the floor. And then came that unforgettable Leela Lee section, with Garfunkel's voice rising above everything, like hope refusing to be silenced. What made the boxer extraordinary wasn't the metaphor, but the honesty. I have squandered my resistance for a pocket full of mumbles. Simon wasn't writing about winners. He was writing about survivors, about people who take the hits, yet keep walking. Garfunkel's harmonies turned that raw pain into something achingly beautiful. Soon the song became an anthem, not of victory, but of endurance. Radio stations leaned on it during troubled times. Protesters sang it at rallies. Campfires echoed with its verses because it carried truth, that sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is simply stand up again. Even today, when Simon sings it solo, you can still hear the weight of those years. The personal struggle he once poured into a song has since become a reminder for everyone that resilience is its own kind of triumph. 4. Scarborough Fair. Some songs are borrowed. This one was reborn. Scarborough Fair existed for centuries before Simon and Garfunkel ever touched it. An old English ballad passed through generations, smoothed by time like a stone polished in a river. Just great, great musicians. So he wasn't interested in... But when Simon discovered it in a London folk club, he heard something others had missed. Possibility. The traditional song was a simple riddle of impossible tasks, a lover's puzzle with no real solution. But Simon heard something else in it. He heard echoes of Vietnam in the herbs and spices, protest in the impossible demands. So he reshaped it, weaving in new anti-war lyrics, creating a haunting dialogue between past and present. Garfunkel's voice was the perfect vessel, clear, pure, almost angelic. When he sang Scarborough Fair, it felt timeless, as if the words were drifting down from some other world. Together, their harmonies transformed the old tune into something mystical, both ancient and modern at once. The arrangement was minimal, just acoustic guitar, Garfunkel's crystalline vocals, and silence. Simon knew the pauses were as important as the notes, giving listeners room to fall under the spell. Every sound felt deliberate. Every silence had weight. No one expected the song to connect with young audiences, but it did. Maybe because it was real in a world growing artificial. Maybe because its impossible tasks reflected their impossible times. Its success proved something important to Simon. Not every great song had to be brand new. Some were already waiting to be rediscovered, reimagined for a new era. Tradition wasn't something to run from. It was something to build on. 3 to Ms. Robinson, some songs grow bigger than movies. This one grew bigger than everything. Mrs. Robinson started as a fragment, nothing more than a playful draft Simon had been fiddling with, originally titled Mrs. Roosevelt. Just a melody searching for meaning, he did a cover of Mrs. Robinson, which I've never actually heard. Then director Mike Nichols called. He needed music for The Graduate. Suddenly, Simon's little fragment had to carry one of the most important films of the decade. Watching early cuts of the movie, Simon understood what was needed. Not background noise, but a generational voice. A song that questioned the perfect-looking American suburbs and revealed the rot underneath. And Mrs. Robinson herself, with her secrets and sadness, became the symbol of that hidden decay. The lyrics came together like a puzzle. Some lines were sharp social commentary, while others, like the nonsensical cuckoo-ca-choo, were pure sound, pure emotion. They fit perfectly, playful yet dark. And the reference to Joe DiMaggio wasn't really about baseball. It was about heroes and how America was losing its faith in them. Garfunkel's vocals captured that complicated balance, innocent yet knowing, hopeful yet cynical. The harmonies gave the song both sweetness and bite, echoing the film's themes. It was pop, but it was also social critique. The song exploded beyond the movie. Radio spun it endlessly, and Mrs. Robinson became shorthand for rebellion, for questioning authority, for pulling back the curtain on the perfect facade of American life. What amazed Simon was how the song kept evolving. Different generations heard different things: rebellion, sadness, the loss of innocence. But everyone found truth in it. What began as a throwaway fragment became a cultural landmark, proof that sometimes art's greatest moments are born by accident. 2. Bridge Over Troubled Water. Some songs are prayers. This one was both question and answer. Bridge Over. Troubled Water came from a place Simon hadn't written from before. Not the head, but the heart. Not observation, but faith. It's probably the song I wrote the quickest. It just came in. Inspired by a single gospel phrase, I'll be your bridge over troubled water, Simon built an entire piece around that promise. Words simple, but carrying the weight of love and loyalty. He wrote it for Garfunkel's voice, knowing only art could lift it to where it belonged. Recording it was emotional. Simon wrote it alone, complete, and handed it over. Garfunkel delivered something transcendent, singing as if he was making that promise directly to each listener. His voice held both sorrow and hope, fragility and strength. The arrangement built naturally, beginning with just piano and voice, then slowly adding strings, percussion, and finally swelling into a triumphant finale. By the end, it didn't just sound like a song, it felt like salvation. Listeners made it their own. They played it at weddings, funerals, tragedies, celebrations. Radio stations turned to it during moments of national grief because no other song spoke hope so clearly. The irony was bitter. As their partnership quietly fell apart, they created a song about standing by one another. Maybe that's why it cut so deeply, because it came from the gap between what they sang and what they were living, from the space between who we want to be and who we really are.
1. The sound of silence. Some songs find you twice. This one saved them both times. The Sound of Silence began in 1964 as little more than a whisper. Paul Simon, sitting in a dark bathroom with his guitar, strummed quietly so he wouldn't wake his parents. Words spilled out about isolation in a world that was growing louder and lonelier at the same time. Well, cultural barriers fall to an amazing degree. But no one heard it. The folk scene was fading. Rock was rising. Their debut album flopped. Garfunkel went back to school, and Simon moved to England, trying to figure out what came next. The Sound of Silence seemed destined to die quietly. Until producer Tom Wilson made a bold move. Without asking, he took the original acoustic track and layered electric instruments, drums, bass, electric guitar. He turned a whisper into a cry. Simon first heard the new version by chance on the radio. Shocked, then furious until it started climbing the charts, then grateful. The new version carried urgency. The same words suddenly felt like a generational warning. Garfunkel's once gentle harmonies now soared against pounding rhythms, transforming the song into an anthem. What made it timeless wasn't just production. It was the way Simon's lyrics spoke directly to the era. In 1965, America was splintering. Civil rights marches, Vietnam protests, generational divides. His words about people talking without speaking, people hearing without listening, felt prophetic, like an alarm bell for a fractured nation. The Sound of Silence gave Simon and Garfunkel their start. But more than that, it taught Simon an essential truth. The most personal songs often become the most universal. Singing about loneliness can make people feel less alone.
Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon.